Now we're going to divide rational expressions. Now this might seem particularly complicated because rational expressions are already fractions, so we're going to have fractions divided by other fractions. But if you remember from doing normal fractional division, all you need to do is multiply by the reciprocal. So let me show you. We have our first fraction here, which I'm going to highlight these two parts of, and when we rewrite it below with the multiplying, it's going to come out looking exactly the same. However, the second fraction that we're looking at here, this 6xy over 5a squared b cubed, if you rewrite that, we're going to flip it. So when we flip it, then we can actually just multiply it and do it like the problems we worked on earlier. So again, you're just flipping the second fraction, and then it's just a multiplication problem. So let's go ahead and work this out now. What I want to do is expand the top, expand out everything that we have so that it's easy to cancel things from below. So 3 doesn't factor, so we'll just write that as 3. We have x squared, a y, a 5 which doesn't factor, an a squared, and a b cubed. And that's going to leave us with something like this on our numerator. In our denominator, 20 factors into 4 times 5, which is 2 times 2 times 5. So we'll write that out. We have our a and our b. We have our 6, which factors down to 2 and 3. And then we have our x, y. So what we did here is we wrote out all the factors on top, all the factors on bottom, and now we can go through and start canceling. We have a 3 on top, a 3 on bottom. We have an x down here, and an x to the second up here, so I'm going to go ahead and make this an x to the first. We have one more x on top than we do on bottom, so we have an x to the first on top, nothing for x's on bottom. We have a y and a y, so those will just simply cancel. A 5 and a 5, which will cancel each other out. We have an a squared up here and an a to the first down here, so 2 minus 1, we're going to have one more a up on top, so a to the first. We have a b cubed on top and a b to the first on bottom, so 2 more b's on top. 3 minus 1 is 2. So we're going to have b squared remaining, and that's going to cancel out the b. And that's all it looks like we can cancel. So let's go ahead and clean this up, rewrite this. We have our x to the first power, or just x. We have our a to the first power, or just a, and then our b squared, which we have written down here. And then on bottom we have our 2, and our 2, and that's all that we have. So we scroll down a little bit, and at this final stage, all we need to do is simplify any of the multiplication that we can. So we'll have our xab squared on top and 8 on the bottom. And that's all we need to do for this first one. Next one here, this one's written a little bit differently, but again, the same basic idea. A fraction on top, a fraction on bottom. We're going to take the first fraction and write it exactly as is. We're going to take the second fraction and we are going to flip it. So we pull this away here to show you what we did. An x minus 3, x minus 3, x plus 2, exactly where they were on numerator, denominator. Second one, we have x squared minus 9. That went to our denominator instead of being in the numerator here. And then just the opposite for the second part. Now that we have it rewritten, we need to go ahead and do our factoring steps. Our x minus 3 is not going to factor, so we can leave that. And the same thing with our x plus 2 in the bottom, so we'll just go ahead and write those two right away. Our equation here in orange, x squared plus 5x plus 6, that will factor. And we're going to factor that into two numbers that add to, multiply to 6, add to 5. It's going to be 3 and 2. X plus 3 and x plus 2 will give us the numbers we need. And then down here in x squared minus 9, you should recognize that as a difference of squares. Could also rewrite that 9 as a 3 squared, so that might be a little easier to see the difference of squares then. And we're going to have an x plus 3 and an x minus 3 when we have that situation. X plus 3, x minus 3. So let's rewrite this below. Again, where we were in orange turned into these factors, where we were in the light blue turned into these factors. And then our last step is just to start canceling. Anything that can cancel on top and bottom will cross out. So we have an x minus 3 factor and an x minus 3 factor. Cross those out. An x plus 2 and an x plus 2 factor. Holy moly, look at that. And when everything cancels out, you have to remember that it is not, in fact, 0. It is, you are left with a 1 on top and a 1 on bottom. So 1 divided by 1 is simply going to be 1.